Hello everybody and welcome to my third video on the Dhole, Ecology. Starting off with distribution, here's a map of their historical versus present range. So you can see in the red how widespread they used to be throughout all of Asia. And now they are reduced to these little green patches as of 2015, so it's probably shrunk since. And this is approximately a 75% decrease. And out of the little space they have left, you can see in this habitat suitability map some of the few places that they might be able to hold out as threats of deforestation and human encroachment continue. So very few places for this species to live out of all of their available habitat. Speaking of habitat, they don't really have a specific place they live. They're somewhat habitat generalists because they can live basically anywhere that has prey and some water and some denning sites. So this includes Cambodia, Malaysia, Myanmar, Thailand, China, India, and historically Russia, no longer Russia, but it used to be a big stronghold for them. And they can live anywhere from alpine to plains. So they can be in the lowlands or up in the mountains or in the taigas in between. So they're very versatile in that. And you can see in these pictures some of the variation that they have in where they live. As for interactions, Dhole on Dhole, they're very social and they don't have a very strong dominant structure or territory marking, which means they don't have to compete with each other very much. They're very willing to help out each other, even if they don't know each other, which helps them because they have to compete against tigers and leopards on the regular. So they have bigger fish to fry. Tigers are considered the apex predators out of the three, with leopards and dholes being secondary. So they tend to avoid areas where tigers hunt, but that puts them in direct competition with each other. So they're constantly fighting larger felines for food. For food, they utilize water to slow their prey down, and they often hunt deer, boar, cattle, buffalo, tapirs in some of the more jungly areas, as well as insects and lizards quite commonly. They're also more willing to eat fruits, vegetables, and grasses than other canines. However, they do tend to avoid cattle for the most part, probably because they are human protected, and this is of much benefit to farmers. However, they do come in contact with wild dogs, like feral dogs from human settlements, which means they are exposed to roundworm, rabies, distemper, mange, parvo, stuff like that, which poses a big threat to their populations. As for humans, they're generally thought a livestock nuisance and killed. In some places, they've been seen as beneficial because they control wild ungulate populations, much like the wolves in Yellowstone do. So they preserve local ungulates from getting too out of hand and taking over human cattle grazing. So they leave more stuff for the cows, and the farmers appreciate that. But in most places, they are hunted. Um, for instance, there was a bounty in India for each dhole killed, but they had to lower the price of the bounty because they had too many dholes coming in to be able to support it financially, if that gives you an idea. They're also very prone to unspecific trapping and hunting methods, so especially things like poisoning carcasses and snaring, which snaring for anything but poisoning for a lot of other big carnivores, dholes tend to become victim of this, whether intentional or not, and face the consequences nonetheless. As for conservation, dholes are considered endangered currently. There's an estimated 2,500 adults in the wild as of 2008, but their population is trending down, so there's probably less than that now. However, that is an estimate. It's hard to calculate their population size because they're not often seen and they're very hard to actually find. So they have to rely on cameras and the few dholes that they can find to collar. To give you an idea, a study that went on for over 10 years only managed to collar 3 dholes. So very hard to find and get your hands on. However, if this number is accurate, it's less dholes than there are tigers in the wild. However, they face just as many threats as tigers and other animals. So habitat loss, a lack of space and prey, humans and disease, as well as a lot of competition, and mainly a lack of popularity. They're not nearly as popular as like tigers and leopards, so they don't reap any of the conservation benefits, which is one of the biggest reasons that little has been done to keep them around. There are efforts to preserve them, though. There's wildlife protection acts in a lot of their home countries, as well as advocacy and research. So they were one of the least researched predators around, and they're finally getting around to that research. So that'll be a big help in conservation efforts, as well as telling people about the dhole and just getting the word out. There's also efforts to bring them back, including captive breeding in zoos, which includes 38 zoos and 353 individuals, and a cloning program in South Korea that's using dogs as surrogate moms, which I haven't looked into a lot, but sounds really cool. Um, but that is the end of my ecology, sadly. I hope you guys enjoyed these presentations on the dholes, and we'll spread the word about them because they could definitely use it if we want to keep them around.